Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling. I shall see what's going on our lovely island Fawnhollow today, where we'll be chilling out as per usual, quite late because I was reasonably busy for most of this evening. What am I going to be doing after this? I'll be chilling out playing some a little bit of games here and there, but then I will also be preparing some D&D stuff. Well, I can't speak D&D stuff tomorrow's. But what should we talk about today? That's a good question. I don't really know. What interesting things have I seen on the YouTubes, the Reddits? I don't think anyone says that, but still. We'll get into this. Good evening, everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow, it's 11:30 p.m. on Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. Okay, so we have visitor staying at a campsite. Quite a late night visitor stay, I suppose. No, the thing I saw was I saw that Critical Role have their new tabletop role-playing system. Which I created, it's called Daggerheart, as I believe. The phone is ringing. Yeah? What for? Did we sell something? I don't remember leaving anything in the drop-off box. I actually have no what video did I even record yesterday? I actually have no recollection of it whatsoever. I guess it must have been pretty late now I think about it because it was after a D&D session. What was it? I have no idea. What was going on? What was it? Resource allocation. I don't remember. Oh, I must have been talking about Genshin Impact, right? Okay, I do remember. The patch is actually going to be, coming out in a couple of hours or something at 2 a.m. I'm actually, surprisingly, it's going to continue that conversational thought. I'm actually kind of leaning towards putting for Chiori because while I think Alicino is very, very cool, I'm not sure if I'm I've seen, I suppose, rumours, what her kit is going to be like. I'm not actually sure if I care that much for it. I think it's kind of interesting and creative, but it's again, I'm not convinced enough yet. At least enough that I'm just I'm going to stake my claim on it. Because the thing is, while I think Alicino is a very cool character, the same way, I think Wanderer is also a very cool character, but I don't care. Wanderer's kit is okay-ish, and I'm not I don't think he's he's not one of my favourite characters or anything. Not because they're evil. I do like evil characters. All the same, I love them, I suppose, as a driving force. I guess it kind of feels weird playing them as a villain in where it's a thing whenever you play these sort of games, if you have the ability to play as a villain, it feels very weird because you had to one, either redeem the villain, and then you kind of lose a lot of in a villain of what makes them not personable, but what makes them so engaging in the first place. Part of it's a thing which, ironically enough, I feel a lot of internet fandoms, especially those with skewed to younger audiences, definitely. I see examples, and I'm trying to think how to phrase this properly because I'm not here to put everyone on blast. I see examples of people not quite grasping the concept of is that you can an evil character, you can a despicable character and a horrible character, but you don't have to like them as a person. If they were an actual person, you'd probably hate them, but you can like them as a character. There are some fantastically amazing, well-written evil characters out there who are such a driving force, who are so engaging, charismatic in certain ways that you can like them. It's a thing. Which I feel people conflate, and not some people in some fandoms tend to conflate that, liking an evil character must mean that you are a horrible person, which is not even the slightest bit true. Because there's a distinction, I suppose, between reality and fiction, and also another layer on top of it that you see fiction in a meta sense rather than just a involved sense. I suppose there's if you are someone who the way you engage with a story tends to be one you put yourself in the character's shoes, you imagine yourself in that world and that sort of thing, and they go against a force of evil, I suppose, in the show, then of course I think you'll get some blowback. You will feel some sort of retaliation against someone who's oh, my favourite character is the evil driving force who makes this character's life a living nightmare. But looking at a story from a meta sense, you can see how each of these different characters are picked and chosen, their personality traits, their dynamics, their choices and motivations, and written in such a way that the story can even work in the first place, that they can have this sort of bounce off each other dynamic, where they have something to fight against the main character, and you can appreciate a character for that. I was actually going to like talk about this like at some point with Has Been Hotel, but I was actually going to watch Has Been Hotel first before I did such a thing. But I'm trying to think of a good example because I can't remember what previous examples I had. But there's probably like numerous fandoms, I suppose, where a villainous character is there and people just like associate for some reason that if you like a villainous character then you are like a horrible person, which is not true. I think like the biggest one I can think of, which is probably the most mainstream as well, is Game of Thrones, when it was actually popular and didn't, you know, like completely drop the board on like season 8 or whatever. But Joffrey as a character, like as I understand it, Joffrey is a human trash. He is despicable, he is vile, he is psychopathic, he is cruel, he's torturous in all the worst ways, but he's as I understand it, a very engaging evil character in that sort of way. Like, a sort of character you love to hate, you know? You look at him, you despise him, and everyone rallies together. But Joffrey could be your favourite character, to be perfectly honest. And I don't think that makes you a bad person. I don't think that makes you like a bad person, like, not even a bad person, but like a bad judge of character or anything like that. Because I feel like it depends very much how you engage with a story. Do you engage with a story in a way of like putting yourself in the shoes? In which case, maybe that is a bit strange, right? You would be like, oh, I see so much of myself in Joffrey, because that's one, really like specific, like are you a tyrannical king or something, and two, maybe is like a little bit of causal concern, is it's like, okay, I don't think you should necessarily be relating so much to like a king who like kills all his subjects or something like that, but you can like him as like a meta narrative and a character. He is like a driving, unapologetic force of evil, as I understand it, in Game of Thrones and things like that, and he, you know, gives something for people to rally behind. His actions are just, I don't know if he's actually very smart as a character. The impression I get is that he's actually sort of like quite conniving in the same way, where he gets what he wants, so you can like appreciate his manipulativeness, etc., and you know, that is the sort of thing which, you know, I think there's a distinct difference between engaging with a character, I suppose, on like a personal level and from like a narrative sense. Maybe there are parts of yourself which you see in Joffrey in like a toned down way or something like that, but it doesn't necessarily, I would say, reflect on you as a person. I would say that maybe there is some reflection on you as a person, but I don't think it is a total reflection which you can draw a definitive conclusion from. And the reason I was talking about this is because Has Been Hotel, if you don't know, it's an animation like created by Vivi Pop, and it's very popular, I suppose, on internet fandoms. I don't think it's super mainstream, like in like I don't want to say real world, because obviously the internet is kind of like real world, but like the physical world, I suppose, and the physical world sounds weird as well. At least like the general people I talk to, like the only people who kind of know about it are people who are on online spaces, which is fine. Like, don't get me wrong, it's like a cartoon, an animation which is born from like the online space in the first place. So unsurprisingly, that's where its core fan base and audience have formed. But as I get older, you know, you sort of look at certain fan bases and you're like, that is a fan base which probably skews a bit younger than I am currently. And I know that because I was thinking about the fact that I was like, if this came out when I was a teenager, yeah, I'd probably be like obsessed with it as well or something. But me being me, I probably would not post like anything ever online, because I just didn't engage with social media in that sort of way. But it's a sort of thing, like, again, I'm sort of like speculating here because I don't really follow much of the discourse around it, but Has Been Hotel inherently has quite villainous characters in it, I suppose, but by definition of it taking place in hell. Now, I'm not saying every character is villainous, I'm not saying every character is evil, and I'm not saying every character is not redeemable or anything like that, but a good majority of the characters, like, it all takes place in hell. As I understand it from my friend, not all characters are there because they sinned in their own life. Some of them are just born into it from other previous sinners or something like that. But inherently, there are a decent number of characters who are evil in that show, because they are in hell, or better yet, I should say, have done evil things to condemn them to, you know, this place. And to be fair, a lot of Has Been Hotel is questioning this sort of morality thing and saying, like, do sinners deserve to be redeemed? Can you redeem a sinner, etc., 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 as I understand it. But that's still, you know, no matter how you like paint the story, at the end of the day, there are going to be some characters in that show who are just evil. Some of them like evil and then stay evil forever, or some of them have done like evil things and then slowly redeem, or some of them have done evil things which people have different opinions on, whether how bad that is or something like that. I don't know. That's like still, again, it's still the same point, isn't it? At least in my perspective, that there are still evil characters on the show. And it's interesting because it's the sort of thing where I've seen like some Tumblr posts and like Twitter posts about it, which you might be like, this is not the best sort of way to gauge public reaction. And no, but my point is not this is the general consensus about these sort of things. I'm just saying that these are small subsections maybe of the community or select individuals of a vocal minority who are like condemning people for liking certain characters. The one that comes to mind is the characters called the V's, who are kind of like a driving evil force behind the show. And they're kind of like more unapologetically evil, I suppose. They are, at least as I understand it, the way they're presented in the show is evil and is meant to be horrible. Like, especially like Valentino, who is, you know, I'm not going to delve into it here on Animal Crossing, but he's a very manipulative and terrible person. But there's a distinction where it's like you can like all three of these characters as like from a meta narrative point of the show, and maybe not even from a meta narrative. That might be even a restriction that I don't even need to put onto it, because at least from what I've seen, these three all seem to be really engaging characters. They all drive the plot forward in their own way. They all have their own delicate spin on the plot and challenge the themes it's talking about in an interesting way, I suppose. You know, Valentino obviously being like a sort of the antagonistic figure to Angel, and it gives him the sort of like room to grow as a character by opposing this force in the first place. And then I don't remember the other characters. The TV head, I don't really know what TV head's up to, but he seems to certainly be some sort of evil, like smarmy driving force as well behind it. And then I can't remember, social media girl, whatever her name is, Velvet, is that right? I can't remember. Is like some very sort of, again, manipulative, conniving, but she very much drives the plot forward by, I suppose, has been hotel spoilers, her scene with the overlords and sort of like challenging the themes and challenging them, being like, why aren't you doing this XYZ? It doesn't necessarily matter. She doesn't stand up for what she's saying herself. She, in the sense of a story, is still driving the plot forward. She's still challenging the notions and creating conflict and tension. Because, I mean, tension and conflict are kind of, I'm not going to say necessary for a story, but they're a very good way to have a story be engaging, no? Like, it's, I'm not going to say it's pointless to have a story about conflicts. I think that's, you know, reductive of like what different genres that could exist out there. Like slice of life is a genre. But tension and conflict is an engaging part of the story. Like imagine the show without these three characters. It would probably be terrible. Well, maybe not terrible, but it would definitely feel like something's missing. It would feel like there's a driving force which is just vacantly not existing within the show. That's why they exist. So basically, I guess the long and short of it is like, it's fine to like evil characters is kind of what I'm like getting at. And I'm not going to say everyone does, but there have been, like, especially when I look around at these sort of cycles, of people have just been, like, being, like, sometimes, being, like, oh, if you like a evil character, you are just, like, a terrible person yourself, which is not true. If you're engaging with a media property and you feel really awkward because your favourite character is an evil character, despite the fact you fully understand the character is evil, you fully understand what they do is, like, not going to say comprehensible, what's the word? Reprehensible? Am I using that right? Reprehensible. Like it's beyond forgiveness, kind of. Yeah, deserving condemnation. Reprehensible. You understand these sort of things. Then, yeah, I think I'm here to tell you that's fine. That is a-okay, you know. You're totally fine to like evil characters in fiction like this. I think it's definitely another thing if you like evil characters who exist in the real world. That I would certainly put my stamp of. That's a bit strange. Because as I say, there's a distinction between the fictional world and the real world, and that sort of thing. And there's also actually, you know, coming from a complete other side of it. Not the weird thing where it's I think I'm sure it must be born out of this sort of like insecurity in the first place of like, I can't like an evil character that reflects poorly on me as a person. I'm a good person. Where they sort of like try and redeem a character, trying to like baby a character in a sense, being like, oh, this person did nothing wrong. They're not evil in any sense or whatever. I'm trying to like think of a good example. Like the only one I can think of is like Project Sakai for some reason, where there's a character called Matthew, and she has like a really like quite abusive and neglectful and manipulative mother, and some people are just like, oh, if you ever like this character as a character in the story, as a driving force, then you know you deserve to, you know, burn or something in the fiery condemnations of hell, which is very extreme, because I think, as I say, there's a distinction between, you know, Matthew is my favourite character, you know, she like, I think her story is very interesting behind it, and I do like Matthew's mum as a character because she is an amazing villain and that sort of thing, but it doesn't reflect on who I am as a person. What are you talking about? So I'm constructing a straw man now. Like, I didn't want this to devolve into me arguing against a made-up person, because I think that's, again, misrepresentative, because I feel like most people are pretty reasonable about things. They'll just be like, oh, you like this evil character, that's totally fair, you know, that's, you know, the character's evil, etc, etc, and then as long as you can both acknowledge that, then yeah, of course you can like an evil character. Like, why shouldn't you be able to? But it kind of has devolved into me just talking about, like, theoreticals, I suppose, about this made up person in my mind. I think it's actually something which is coming more from Honkai Star Rail, which is probably why it, like, brought up in my head recently, because Honkai Star Rail is a little bit different from Genshin, where the significantly more of the characters are either morally grey or straight up evil in some sense. Like, suddenly, like, all the Stellaron hunters are very much sort of like morally grey. Probably what's happening with them is they are doing what they think is right for, like, a good reason, but they are still doing, you know, evil things. Like, one of them incited like a revolution or something on the planet, which, like, resulted in the deaths of, like, a huge amount of people, etc, etc, stuff like that. You know, they're not doing nice things, but they are still doing things that they think is right. And you can still like the character and not have it reflect on you, like, poorly as a person, in my opinion. You know, you might have a counter argument where you're like, if you ever like villains and you are a horrible person, in which case, you know, feel free to share it. I don't necessarily agree with you, but I respect your right to have an opinion, I suppose, and your right to say it. I'm trying to think of, like, a better example. but there is a weird sort of dynamic, I think, by playing a villain in these sort of games, because a lot of the time the games try and, like, sort of do this halfway redemption thing. The Genshin, I suppose, certainly tried to do, like, what they're trying to do with the Harbingers in the first place, where Child is, like, sort of like more of a morally grey Harbinger and that sort of thing. And then Wanderer, you know, spoilers, I suppose, about his story, but he had to have, like, huge, like, character upheavals, I suppose, for it to, like, even make sense for him to join you. And then I don't know what we're going to do with this character, because she very much is described as, like, psychotic, I suppose, and by many different characters. She doesn't seem all that psychotic from the story we've seen so far, but we've not seen too much of her yet. So I'm curious in that sense. I guess kind of what I want to say is, like, just just commit to this character being an evil character that you can just, for some magical narrative reason, is just in your party, I guess. Because I suppose plot-wise, they're not with you for the actual story. It's just for mechanical fun, if anything, right? But I also feel like there tends to be a sort of backlash against evil characters in the first place. Like, again, using Honkai Star Rail as an example, there was a character called Topaz who was released, and people hated Topaz when she was released because she was not, like, a purely good character. And people said she was evil. I don't think she's evil. I think she's very much, like, lawful neutral, if anything. She is systematic, I suppose, but she's basically, like, a tax collector. She works for, like, this mega corporation and that sort of thing, and she came to collect a debt, as is per the contract that this planet had, except for, like, this planet is full of, like, beloved good characters which people like, so people immediately paint her as a villain. She's, like, the antagonist, I suppose, in, like, this plot point, but she's not, like, a villain, I suppose, in that sense. She's not, like, evil incarnate. She has a moral conscience, spoilers, I suppose, of which demonstrated within the story as well. But man, the backlash to people some people had towards her was crazy. But I suppose that at times whenever there's sort of, like, drama and fandoms like that, I've got to, like, sit down and think to myself, like, oh, you know, there's a decent chance that some of these people are just, like, teenagers or whatever, and, you know, I was a teenager with probably ideas like this once as well, so, you know, let them get it out of their system and that sort of thing. That happens a lot with projects like when I see, like, a post and I'm like, what is going on? And then I'm like, oh yeah, there's probably, like, a decent amount of teenagers playing this game. And here I am still playing it anyway. But yeah, I guess where I was just sort of going with this is, like, yeah, like, if you like evil characters, continue liking evil characters and stuff like that. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this episode off here, so if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Day Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see each other again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.